The man who collected unsold words. In a narrow street tucked between a closed bookshop and a tea stall that smelled of cardamom and old memories, there lived a man few people truly noticed. His name was Ibrahim, though most in the neighborhood simply called him the Quiet One. He lived alone in a small rented room with cracked walls and a window that never fully shut. Each morning, while the city rushed forward chasing money, success, and noise, Ibrahim walked slowly through the streets with a cloth bag over his shoulder. Inside that bag, he carried nothing of value in the eyes of the world, only words. Not written words, not printed ones, but unsold words. Words people never spoke, sentences they swallowed, feelings they buried deep inside their hearts. Ibrahim had not always been this way. Once, many years ago, he dreamed of becoming a writer. He loved words the way others loved gold. He believed words could heal wounds, stop wars, and mend broken hearts. But dreams, like fragile glass, often shatter quietly. His stories were rejected by publishers, his poems ignored by magazines, and his letters returned unopened. Slowly, the world taught him that loud voices sold better than honest ones, and flashy lies traveled faster than quiet truths. One day, after receiving yet another rejection letter, Ibrahim stopped trying to sell his words. Instead, he began to listen to the words others could not sell to the world. It started accidentally. One evening, sitting at the tea stall, he overheard an old man whispering to himself about a son who never returned home. The words were heavy with regret, but the old man never said them aloud to anyone. Ibrahim felt those words float in the air, unseen and unwanted. Without understanding how, he felt them settle inside him, as if asking for shelter. That night, he wrote the old man's unsaid sentence in a notebook, "I should have said I was proud of you." From that moment on, Ibrahim realized he had a strange gift. He could hear the words people carried but never spoke. Day after day, Ibrahim walked through markets, bus stops, hospitals, and parks, collecting unsold words. At the hospital gate, he gathered prayers that families were too afraid to say aloud. On crowded buses, he picked up apologies trapped behind tired eyes. In homes filled with arguments, he found love hidden beneath anger. Each word he collected was invisible to others but heavy to him. At night, he wrote them carefully in notebooks, treating each sentence like a fragile treasure. His room slowly filled with stacks of notebooks, each one holding the secret language of human hearts. People thought Ibrahim was strange. Children laughed at him, shopkeepers ignored him, and neighbors avoided long conversations. He earned little money by doing small tasks, carrying groceries, cleaning yards, running errands. Yet he was richer than anyone realized. He owned thousands of words the world had rejected. Words like "forgive me," "I miss you," "I am afraid," and "I love you." He believed these unsold words mattered more than any bestseller, because they were real. They were honest. They were human. One rainy afternoon, Ibrahim met a young woman sitting alone at a bus stop, tears mixing with the rain on her face. She stared ahead, silent, her hands trembling. Around her floated words she could not say: fear of failure, shame of returning home empty-handed, the pain of disappointing her family. Ibrahim sat beside her, not speaking. After a long silence, he gently said, "It's okay to rest. Even strong people need pauses." The woman looked at him, surprised, as if he had spoken the exact sentence her heart was screaming. She nodded, wiped her tears, and whispered a quiet thank you before boarding her bus. That night, Ibrahim wrote her unsold words down, smiling softly. As years passed, Ibrahim grew older, and the weight of the words he carried grew heavier. Some nights, the sorrow in his notebooks made it hard to breathe. He wondered why the world created so many feelings but gave people so little courage to express them. Still, he continued his work, believing that if even one unsold word was saved from disappearing forever, his life had meaning. He dreamed that someday, somehow, these words would find their way back to the people who needed them most. One winter, the city changed. New buildings rose, old shops closed, and the tea stall where Ibrahim often sat shut down forever. With it, many familiar faces disappeared. Ibrahim felt a quiet fear. What would happen to the unsold words if there was no one left to hear them? One evening, alone in his room, he fell ill. Fever burned through him, and his breath grew shallow. Surrounded by notebooks filled with other people's feelings, he realized something painful. He had collected everyone else's unsold words but never sold his own. He had never told the world how lonely he was, how deeply he still loved writing, or how much he wished someone would truly see him. That night, with shaking hands, Ibrahim opened a fresh notebook. Instead of writing someone else's words, he wrote his own. He wrote about rejection, about quiet hope, about loving words even when they did not love him back. He wrote until dawn, tears falling onto the pages. For the first time, he felt lighter. He understood then that unsold words do not need buyers, they need voices. And sometimes, the first voice must be your own. A few days later, Ibrahim did something unexpected. He placed a small table outside his room and stacked his notebooks on it. On a handwritten sign, he wrote, "Free words. Take what you need." People passed by, curious. A man stopped and opened a notebook, reading a sentence that mirrored his own pain. A woman found a page that sounded like her secret fear. Slowly, word spread. People came, read silently, and left with tears, smiles, or quiet relief. They did not know who had written the words, but they felt understood. Ibrahim watched from a distance, his heart full. The words he had collected were finally being heard. They were no longer unsold. They were shared. One evening, a child asked him, "Uncle, did you write all these?" Ibrahim smiled gently and replied, "No. People wrote them with their hearts. I just kept them safe." The child nodded, as if that answer made perfect sense. As time passed, Ibrahim's health weakened, but his spirit grew strong. The city no longer ignored him. Though few knew his name, many felt his presence. When Ibrahim finally passed away quietly in his room, the neighbors found his notebooks carefully arranged, his last one open on the table. On its final page, he had written, "Words are never useless. They only wait for the right heart." After his death, the notebooks did not disappear. People kept them, shared them, copied sentences, and passed them on. The man who collected unsold words became a silent legend. And somewhere in the busy noise of the world, when someone finally finds the courage to speak what they feel, it is said that one of Ibrahim's unsold words has finally found its home.